So we're back. We had a little interruption. The phone rang and it cut off our capabilities of recording. But fire away, Karen. Next question.
So, can you tell us how you think your music background has influenced your writing?
Yes, my music background has definitely influenced my writing. You have to write about what you know about. Doesn't matter what you know about. You write about it. It doesn't matter what you write about, does it? It's how you do it, it's how interesting you make it, and it's all the things surrounding that and the characters themselves. That's what makes a book fascinating or not. And so I've been teaching piano since I was 17. I wasn't qualified when I was 17. I was teaching piano when I was 17 because my mum's a piano teacher. My dad was a pianist as well. He died when I was 18. So I've been teaching the piano now for an awful long time, 30 years. And during that time, I suppose that you learn how to connect with people. That's been very important in my writing. And I did start to write when I started to write for teenage girls, because I teach an awful lot of teenage girls and I've got 4 children. And I felt like I have a good relationship with young people, and that's who I decided to write for. But it hasn't turned out that way. It isn't teenage girls who read my books. It's women and men and some teenage girls, but that's a minority. But my music has definitely come into it. It's what I know about, it's what I've been doing for a long time. I know the process, it's a discipline. Writing is a discipline. And so I just surrounded the character in music. It's what I feel comfortable writing about. And to be honest, it didn't matter that it was about music, did it? It wouldn't have mattered if it was a physics student in Cambridge instead. But that's what I know about. My son's in Manchester. He's lived there since he was 18. He's 24 now. He's been at the Royal Northern all that time. I've done 2 degree ceremonies there. I've been around the college. I know some of the teachers. So very comfortable for me writing about that area, and it's where I come from.
And what do your family think about the series and the new book?
Well, so I've 2 sons and 2 daughters. My son's the oldest 2. My sons have read all of my books, and my daughters have read none of my books. So it's an interesting question. I do talk to my girls about my plot sometimes. So by the time I finish talking to them and just boring them with all aspects of my plot before I start writing, there's actually no point in them reading the books by the end, because I've completely spoilt it for them. My sons, however, don't want to know anything about the books when I'm writing them, and then they read them at the end. And both of my sons finished Shadows to Ashes just last night. This is Monday, by the way. This is Monday the 26th of June. So both of my sons finished Shadows to Ashes last night, and they both wanted to speak to me first thing this morning, and they loved it. They loved it, which was wonderful for me. It is their opinion that I value the most, to be honest with you. The other person who always reads my books is my youngest sister. I have 2 sisters, other than my youngest sister, but my youngest sister has read everything I've ever written, and I always wait for her verdict with great interest.
And are any of the characters based on real people that you know, or are they all just made up?
I think I could be dishonest about that question, but I'm not a dishonest person. I think all the characters are an amalgamation of people who I know and who I've met and who I know about, who fascinated me in some way. But not consciously, no. I haven't consciously thought Henry is this person, and Vincent Solomon is this person. No, not consciously, no. But of course, everybody that you meet filters into your mind, stays with you, particularly very strong characters who you meet, and they stay with you for a very long time, and you can't help but spew them back up in some way and create something from that.
And without giving too much away, how do some of the ideas that are in the trilogy, how do they come to you? How do they come about?
Ooh, I'm not an ideas person. People argue with me about this and tell me I've got a great imagination. I can tell you I have not got a great imagination at all. I don't believe I've got a great imagination. So how do ideas come to me? Well, the first one, as I said, this is this subconscious mind. My subconscious mind is fantastic, as you can see. I'm better just staying right out of the way of my subconscious mind. So Either Side of Midnight was born out of this situation that was happening to me at that time. Never intended to write The Darkness Visible, at least I didn't intend to write a sequel to Either Side of Midnight, but people started enjoying Either Side of Midnight, a lot of people, and asked me if I was writing a sequel. And so the idea was really brought to me, and then I had to create a much bigger picture around this original picture. That became then a fragment of the overall. Of course, I know a lot more about this overall story that I'm ever able to tell. There's always more. You have to know everything about everybody, and then you tell what's relevant, and you try and cut what's irrelevant to the story. So it just grew on its own. When I get stuck, I just try and say to myself, what would he do? What would she do? Not what do I want to do? What would they do in this situation? I've got to get inside their head, and I almost speak to them and say, what do you want me to do? What would you do in this situation? Because I don't know what to do. And if I sometimes go my own way, then it leads me into trouble, and I scrap whole storylines sometimes. I think that's not working. I just begin to feel a bit uneasy, and I think this is not working because this is not what this character would do.
Interesting. So, is this definitely the last book in the series?
This is the last book in the series. This is the last book in the series, which is why it's taken so long and why people have been screaming at me, where is it, Tori, and what are you doing? Because I've had to just pull everything together. I've had to every thread that I've left lying around, I've had to draw all the threads together, I've had to make them make sense, I've had to come up with something that's going to satisfy everybody, and that's taken a whole lot of time. I'm not writing anymore.
Just going to ask you, have you got any future projects in mind?
Yes, putting my feet up, that's going to be the first one. Doing lots of reading. What I will do is, I don't know what I'll write next. If I do, I always feel as though everything I write, I put all of me into it. I'm like this as a friend. If you've got me as a friend, you've got all of me. I don't give a bit of me. If you've got me as a mum, I give all of me. As you can see from my writing, I'm a woman of many words, and I'm a woman who gives everything. So if you're going to get some of me, you're going to get all of me. And all of my books, I give all of me. And so I always think there's nothing left for me to give. But I felt that when I had one child, that I'd given all that I had to this one child, and I thought, I can't give any more to another one. If another one comes along, I've got nothing left to give. But suddenly you expand and you're just able to give the same to the next one, and so it just goes on and on and on. So never say never. My books are like my children, aren't they, in a way? They're like an extension of me. So I won't say I can't give any more, but I feel as though I've given everything to this trilogy. But who knows?
Who knows? Good.
Who knows? There's nothing in my mind at the moment. I can't think beyond what I'm working on.
Okay. So we have some bit more quick-fire questions now.
I'll try. I'll try.
How do you think of the titles?
Yes. I'm dreadful at titles. I wrote the whole of Either Side of Midnight, and I didn't have a title. And then, as I was reading the book back, I'd written that the girls were born either side of midnight, and I thought, actually, I like that phrase. So I do what I'd done half a dozen times before, and I thought, that's a good idea. Go on Amazon, tap it in, there's another 15 books that have got that same title. So with Either Side of Midnight, tapped it into Amazon, nothing comes up. Just an album by whatever he's called, McManus, who comes up every time I write in Either Side of Midnight. A music album is called Either Side of Midnight. Other than that, there's no other books on Amazon, and I thought, that's it. That's the one. Darkness Visible, I've written the entire book again. No title. Absolutely no title. Let's be honest then. Darkness Visible is a piece of music. There's a piece of music by a composer called Thomas Adès, and his is called Darkness Visible, spelled oldie worldy. And I thought, I like that. So I inserted a couple of sentences into my book that made it fit. That's how that one came about.
Good
Shadows
answer.
to Ashes. My youngest daughter thought of Shadows to Ashes. I was talking to her as I do, pouring the pants off her rather, with my plot. And I said, I've no title, darling. I don't know what to call this book. And she listened to me rambling on for ages and ages, and she said, Shadows to Ashes. And I said, that'll do. I went on
That's the
Amazon.
one.
There's no one that's called Shadows to Ashes. Thought, that's it, I'm having it.
Good.
So I'm sorry to disappoint, but no, the titles get scrambled out of thin air.
Do you have a favourite scene in the new book without giving too much away?
Yes,
Can
I
you tell
do.
us a little bit about it?
No.
No, okay.
My favourite scene in the new book, I mean, I have a favourite scene on Either Side of Midnight, and it's the scene that everybody talks about. The twist. The one where the mouths dropped and there was a big gasp and they realised that I'm not some insipid writer wanting to write about insipid things. And they think, there's some grit to this book then. Yes, there was a scene that I was really looking forward to. I saw it from afar in the third book. I knew I would come to this scene. I was writing for months and months and months and months and months, and eventually I remember the day when I sat down to write this scene. So I'll see afterwards if people come to me and say, was that it?
Okay. There's one for you. Come and let us know if you think you found the scene.
Yeah, tell me if you think you found the scene. I enjoyed writing that. On that day, I stayed awake while I was writing it, which was really good.
Yeah. So, in terms of if anybody's watching who is a budding writer who really fancies having a go at this themselves, have you got any tips for them?
Ooh.
Is that a whole other webcast?
Again, it's a whole other webcast. Again, I would say be honest with yourself. You know, we've all got our gifts. I've said that, I never thought I would end up writing. I'm not saying I'm a gifted writer, but you've got to be honest. You know, if you're not good at writing, don't write. It's never, do it for pleasure. Take up knitting or something. It's never going to sell. It's really difficult. It's really, really difficult to establish yourself as a writer, even if you have good writing skills. Added to that, then, you need really good interpersonal skills. You need to understand people. You need a really good working knowledge of psychology to be able to create characters, don't you? And they need to be consistent throughout 3 books. If one of the characters starts to become unreal because they just start to act completely out of character, as you see in some sitcoms sometimes, or you'll see a character over time, they just become somebody else. So that's not realistic. So I think you've just got to be really realistic. Am I good at this? Am I good at writing? Am I good with people? Do I understand people? Do I get ideas about plots? Am I able to? And then you've got to sit and work for years and years and years and years till you perfect the ability to be able to amalgamate all that into something that's worth reading. It's not easy. It's one of the hardest things that I've ever done. But I just wanted to do it for fun. I did it as a hobby. I told you I'd be quick answering these questions. Didn't I? No problem. One word.
What made you start writing then? What was the...
An absolute desire to sit and write. I don't know why. Teaching the piano for years and years and years and years, having children. My 4 children are 12 years apart, so I've been parenting a very, very long time. My oldest son will be 30 next year. So I've been parenting a long time, since I was 18 years old. So about 9 years ago, I just had an overwhelming desire to write. And I sat down with my family one night and I said, I'm going to write a book. And then they all sort of said, yeah, whatever. And I said, any ideas for a book? And they all said, no. Is there anything on telly? So I said, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to absolutely do it. And I did. And I did. Not any of the books that you've read, but I did. And I think you have to have that training ground. You have to have that book that you read back years later and think, that's awful. that is awful. But you have to have that one. And that's why I rewrote the first book twice. Because when I read it back, I just thought, that isn't good. And you just start to get an instinctive feel for what works and what doesn't work. It's a lot of learning, and you have to attend classes and you have to read books about how to write. And so, in other words, in short, come on Tori now, down to words. In short, you have to be 100% dedicated and prepared to put years in before you come up with anything that's half decent.
And what have you got anything in particular that you'd like to say to the fans of this series, the people who've been asking you again and again for book 3? Anything polite?
Wow. I'm delighted to say that you can have it on Friday. That's what, absolutely delighted to get it off my laptop and into your hands. It's been very, very burdensome actually. I don't share my plot or discuss plot ideas with anyone. Not a single person. My husband, when I sit down with my sons and say, oh, I really need to discuss plot, don't tell me. I want it to be a surprise. No, it's fantastic. So I'll sit down and bore my daughters, but they don't offer anything. So in the end, it's just me. It's just a solo journey for months and months and months. Don't have an agent. I don't have a publisher. I don't have anybody that I talk to. My mum's never read my books because I won't let her. That's another story. And so there's nobody that I discuss ideas with. My one sister reads my books. She wants to know what's happening, so she's not interested in discussing anything with me. So it's just me, and I just sit there, and it is very burdensome. And then come up with something in the end, and then I tentatively give it out to these people who I think a lot of and who think a lot of me, and then wait for the verdict and just hope that it's worked. And this time it's been a big thumbs up, but I say that very tentatively because I don't know if I'll please the readers, but I hope so.
Sure you will.
Hope so. I work hard to.